Hello, okay. Today I'm going to be doing something a bit different. Instead of presenting a finished deck or presenting changes, I'm going to present the deconstruction of Jhoira. It's become apparent that Jhoira is no longer fast enough to compete in the environments that I play. So why is that? Okay, so she costs 3. 1 blue, 1 red, 1 colorless. 2/2 human wizard. Now, if you run her out as quickly as you can, then she's going to get targeted. People are going to try to keep her off the table because it's obvious what she does. Some commanders, when people read them, they don't know exactly what your deck is supposed to do. They don't know what your game plan is, or they realize your game plan is not an overt threat. Jhoira, obviously her game plan is an overt threat. Cheat big expensive things into play, smash the table, destroy everything. It's pretty obvious. Anybody who's played against a Jhoira deck knows that's the game plan. So the limitation to that is you're not going to have a lot of small creatures, you're not going to have a lot of ways to defend yourself in the early game if you're going with the full Jhoira game plan. Now you can dilute it and you can make it some half-assed version of the deck, but then you're not really playing into her strengths. You're not really playing Jhoira. So ultimately, she costs 5 because you don't want to put her out unless you have 2 colorless to suspend something interesting, some big threat. Blyso Colossus, Obliterate, Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, something that will justify playing the deck. So let's say I get a good hand, and within the first couple turns I have a Soul Ring. So on turn 3, if I play a Soul Ring on turn 1 or 2, on turn 3 she can come down and I can suspend something. Well, it still gives your opponents 4 turns to do something about it, unless you have Jhoira's Time Bug, in the interim, clock spinning, something that will remove those time counters. So they see it coming, they can hold up counter magic, they can hold up some kind of removal if it's something that can be removed, and then they're going to try to take out Jhoira, so you can't do it anymore. They're also going to attack you, since by playing Jhoira you're announcing that you are the threat. Your opponents will play accordingly. So for those reasons I'll be deconstructing Jhoira, talking about what I'll do with the pieces and so on. What it also does is it gives me space for another deck. So this is how I store my commander decks. In a, I guess this is 800 count, 800 count box, 5 decks sleeved, double sleeved per box. And I think that space will be taken by a rebuild of Karthus Terramajund, and I'll show you that rebuild when I do it. So let's see what we've got. First thing I do when I deconstruct a deck is I take out all the lands and just put them in a pile. Something to consider when you're deconstructing a deck, a thought that obviously comes naturally, is you can sell a lot of the pieces and put the money into another deck. On the surface, that's true. Functionally, what happens is only about 20% of any typical commander deck is worth any real money. Real money meaning 10 euros or up, because I'm not going to list anything on MKM for less than 10 euros. It's not worth my time to go to the post office for less than that amount. So you're left with 80 cards that aren't worth anything really. And then the other problem is anything you sell, obviously you won't have unless it's an extra copy for some reason. And if you try to rebuild the deck at some point in the future, or you try to use, you want the pieces for something else, you won't have them. So there's actually only a few cards that you can sell of any real value. So now I'm separating the non-basics from the basics. The basics I always keep. So, for example, this one, this Onslaught land, I have 13 islands and 13 mountains. I like the art of my basics to match. And storing 13 of them gives me plenty of those lands to build a commander deck with. Because a typical commander deck has only, what, 16 basics. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So for Jhoira, I'm using 12 of the 13. For islands, 8 of the 13 for mountains. So those are basics. I'll leave them later. Now for the non-basics. I'll put them in alphabetical order. Well, first let's see what I can actually sell. So, Sculling Tarn. Probably keep that. Oval Palace. It's not worth anything. Command Tower's not worth anything. Not worth anything. This has some value because it's second generation Shockland, but that Pro Tour stamp makes it damaged in most people's eyes, so it's not really worth anything. Foil Riptide Laboratory from Modern Horizons, not worth anything. Maze of Ith. Now, this I could sell, and I could get something out of it, but I love Maze of Ith. I like the original art, and this one is signed, so obviously I'm not going to sell that one. High Market, not worth anything, not worth anything, not worth anything. Excuse me. This is currently not really worth anything. I think it's only about 10 euros. It's a reserve list card that nobody really plays, even though it's low-hanging fruit. It replaces a mountain, and it can remove land walking ability. But since there are fewer and fewer decks that have any land walking, as Wizards has taken that out of the game, most people either don't know about it or just think they don't need it. Especially newer players. They won't really know about it, and they don't really need it because there's not a whole lot of land walking in the game. Fry Islet, I don't think that's worth anything, but I'll put that up here in the sell pile to look up later. Siobhan Reef, I want to keep that because I love the original art. Temple of Epiphany, original foil, keep that. Ancient Tomb. I wouldn't use that in any other deck I'm planning to build, I think. Maybe Kemba. I do have a plan to build Kemba at some point. Not Kemba, Aribo. I have a plan to build Aribo. Maybe that would go in Aribo, so I'll put that there. Cascade Bluffs. I would like to replace the foil one for my collection, but until then, this is my only copy, so I'm going to keep it. Sulphur Falls, foil, keeping it. Command Beacon, highly useful. And Halimar Depths, keeping. So, out of here, what is worth any money? Foil, not worth anything. Beacon of Destruction, so this was in here to take out threats. It costs 5, so let's say the first couple turns I get that Soul Ring or Mana Crypt, and I've got 2 red, so I can take out a threat because people will be pounding into me. That's what has been happening the last few games I've played Jhoira. I'm the arch enemy. But it's not worth anything. I'll keep it. Blyso Colossus, this is worth some money. It's not worth much more than I paid for it, and it can go in Animar easily, so keep that for possibly Animar. Timebender, not worth anything. Dissipate, love the art, not worth anything. Mystical Tutor, this is probably worth something, but I don't have that many of them. I think I only have one other one. Original, keep it. Karanos, God of Storms. I'm going to put him in the sell pile, see what he's worth, because I would like to get a foil one if I ever rebuild this. Apocalypse. It's kind of neat art. I would never play it in any other deck. I just don't want to remove everything from the game. And Jhoira obviously fits in your game plan, because when you remove everything from the game, you should have some big fat nasty creature coming down the pipeline, coming to the time stream. So keep this, but your org, even foil, not worth anything. Time warp, probably worth something, but could go into other decks, so I will keep that. Obliterate, quite expensive now, worth far more than I originally paid for this card, but I love original foils, so keep that. Manager, same thing, very useful, keep. Manifold, keep. Next is a Fate. Would I use this in any other deck that I would be playing? Probably not. I don't know what it's worth, so I'll put it in the possible sell pile. Spell Crumble, not worth anything. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Okay, so in NMR, I have a copy of Kozilek already. So this one from Uma, I could put in the sell pile, and if I go to rebuild the deck, if there's only a few cards that I need to rebuy because I sold them, since it's only one or two, I could put out for foils. So I will sell Kozilek with the idea that in the future, if I want to rebuy him, I will get a foil. Spine of Isha, not worth anything. Inkwell Leviathan, it's just cool. I've got a couple of the decks it can go in. It can go into Shroom easily. It can go into Animar. Actually, might be, I should put it in Animar. Might be fun. It took me a while to get the Conflux foil. For the longest time, I had the Graveborn deck foils, and they have no value. I don't think this has any value. I like it, so I'll keep it. Ulabog, same as Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. From Uma, it's flat, not foil. I don't have any other deck that he would go into, so for now I can sell him off. Omniscience. I've got two of the Judge foils. This is the only original one that I have, and it's in foil. It's pretty. I could put in something else, so I'll keep that. Decree of Annihilation. I really don't care about the art. It's original foil. I'll put it up in the possible sell. Wildfire, it's not worth anything. It's not worth my time to list. Counterspell, same thing. Tormod Script. Let's just put it dirt. I'm going to de-sleeve these anyway. Keep that. Tavarius Puzzle Box. I love Kai Foglio's art. Not worth anything. Italy. I want to get a foil one in the time shifted. Last time I checked, it was still about 30 euros. So I will get rid of it, but I'll probably just put it in my daughter's collection. My daughter, I have a collection of cards that aren't really worth anything, aren't anything I want to play, and are just in a box for someday in the future if she decides that she wants to start playing this game. So far it bores her. She doesn't like Magic. Fair enough. We'll see what happens. Sphinx of the Second Sun. Really cool ability. Really interesting. So keep that for future decks. Balefire Dragon, same thing. Soul Talisman, not worth anything. Was just in here to give me two colorless to trigger Jhoira Suspend. have a fourth colossus. So I've got Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mana Vault, and Soul Talisman. Any of those should give me the mana I need readily to trigger Jhoira's ability. Dark Soul Colossus, I love it. I love it. The art, I've always liked this card ever since I saw it in Mirrodin. I'm going to keep him just because. Chroma, I had been wanting to replace her with a foil one, so I will put her in the eliminate pile. Maybe I'll get a foil one in the interim. Hinder, love the art, not worth anything. Dark Steel Plate, highly useful in other decks, so I'll keep that. Disallow, it's a flat one, not a foil one, so it's not worth anything. Not worth my time to try to resell. Spellskite, highly useful in other decks. I better hang on to it. Scroll Rack, this will go into Karthus if when I do the rebuild. Time Spinning, it's completely useless in any other deck. It has almost no value. It's beautiful, so keep it, put it in my art binder. Yako Hops, same thing. I intentionally got this one because I like the art. I like the quote. I have no other decks I would really put in. Maybe Karavek. Maybe put that in Karavek. Another take an extra turn card. The reason I had so many of these was Jhoira. So if you take another turn, you're essentially taking another counter off whatever's in the time stream, making them come down faster. Seize the Day, so I can hit somebody. I'm going to go to part 2. My camera's about to shut off.